Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me today for the first of 3 trainings under the heading of Raise More with Major Gifts. I hope that you're excited to learn some of the basics for major gifts so that you can start transforming the fundraising results for your organization. Now, if you were live with me for training one day, which was on Thursday, the 16th of September, you will know that this is not the live recording. We had a lot of tech troubles, and you wouldn't have appreciated the sound quality that came out of that recording. So I am re-recording it and going to load it up as the replay. I will also try to include the chat that went along with the live recording. No promises, low on the tech skills here, but hope to amaze and delight you with the training content at least. So let's just really get started. In the live training, I started by asking folks if they would join me in a quick poll and let me know if they were brand new to fundraising, put a 1 in the chat, and if they were experienced in fundraising but new to major gifts, put a 2 in the chat. And if they were experienced with major gifts but just ready to level up their skills, then put a 3 in the chat. And so we had all sorts of folks chiming in with their numbers, and we had a good mix of folks from the very brand new people to the world of nonprofit and the world of fundraising, to some people who'd been at it for a while. So I encouraged everyone to make sure that if they have questions, to be commenting and asking questions in the Facebook group, because it sounds like we have lots of people who have a wealth of experience who will be able to support those people who are newer. And I do feel that that's the general sentiment of the nonprofit world. We're all here to make the world a better place. We're all here to do good, and we're willing to share our resources, our wisdom, our experiences, our successes, if they can help another organization to achieve the same. So that was how we started off the training. And then I wanted to just ask you, why are you here? Why did you sign up for this training? Let me know. You can certainly be commenting in your mind, out loud. We had a lot of people jumping into the chat and telling us how they came to want to know more about major gifts. And I assume that most people are here because they love working in nonprofit, and they came to the nonprofit world, many people, maybe this is you, because they wanted to do meaningful work. There's something about the nonprofit that you work for, or for nonprofits in general, that really calls to you. And you probably realize already that you can't deliver on your organization's mission unless you have fundraising, unless you raise some donated dollars. You just can't deliver on your mission unless that piece is met and taken care of. So you know it's important. And you might have reached out to me and joined this training because you are feeling a little bit exhausted, because the world of fundraising can be very busy, very time consuming, very labor intensive, especially if you are focused on regular smaller gifts. You're doing mail-outs, phone-a-thons, email, social media, events. Those are high touch activities that require a lot of your time and attention. And sometimes you just get exhausted and you feel like there has to be a better way. And so you are here because you're hearing that major gifts could be that better way. And I'm here to tell you I believe it is, and that's why I share this training. Now, one tiny gift at a time is important because you need to bring new donors to your organization, but it is going to burn people out, and that's what I hear the most often. So let me ask you, in my years of experience, I've come to kind of define the 2 types of fundraiser, who you are and who you want to be. So you tell me, does any of this ring a bell? Are you the under the gun fundraiser? You're passionate at heart, you want to change the world, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed from doing all the things, you long to fundraise smarter and not harder, but you just don't know where to start. And what you hope to be, maybe you're already here in some of the cases. Let me ask you, are you wanting to be the confident nonprofit leader? So you are a change maker. You are a leader and you know where to focus your time and energy to get the biggest impacts and return on investment. You are confident and successful at fundraising. And most importantly, and one of the biggest concerns I hear, you are 100% in your integrity, in your fundraising, and in all that you do. So then I asked everybody to let me know, are you more of the confident nonprofit leader already, or are you the under the gun fundraiser? And this training is really here to show you how non-profits can use major gift fundraising to help them become the confident nonprofit leader. So in this three-part training, I am going to demonstrate to you why major gifts is the best strategy to help you get from A, the under the gun fundraiser, to B, that confident nonprofit leader. And so in order to describe to you first and foremost why and make the case for why major gifts is the way to go, I need to get into a little bit of fundraising 101. So if this is a little bit elementary to you, bear with me. For some people who are the ones from earlier in the group who are brand new to fundraising, this will be important. It's also a really important way to describe major gifts when you are making the case to your board or to others in terms of investing time, money, and energy into a major gift strategy. So this is a typical donor pyramid. You may have seen these before, but let me tell you why this is the first piece of the puzzle in explaining why major gifts are so important to your organization. So the universe of prospective donors, that's everybody who may ever at some point want to donate to your organization. They're the base of this pyramid and of course the largest number of people. And then once they make their first gift, that's not everybody, that's fewer people, so it gets a little bit narrower. And as we move up the pyramid, what we see is there are fewer donors, but each gift is getting larger. And so near the top, we see major giving, and there's fewer people, but they're giving larger gifts. And what we consider the very top of the pyramid, usually the largest gifts, but from fewer people, are the estate gifts or the gifts through a will. So that is the typical pyramid. Now, how we apply that and really get the understanding of major gifts and the impact is by looking at an example. So here we see an example organization that is well integrated with a major gift strategy as a part of their robust strategies for fundraising. So this isn't someone who just started at major gifts. They've been rolling with it for a while. So their budget or their annual raised dollars is 1.2 million. And how does that break out? And this is where we're going to see the magic of major gifts. So the bulk of their donors are giving gifts below $200. So the $0 to $200 gifts, those donors, there's 730 of them. And that's 56% of their donor pool. Those donors are contributing $52,000 to this organization per year, approximately, and that's 4.2% of their overall income. Now, just because they're only contributing 4.2% of the overall income does not mean they're not important. Our entry-level gifts, those smaller gifts, the largest number of donors are so important, very important, because we always need new people learning about our organization and coming into our organization as first-time donors. The next level is what we would call here our mid-level gifts for this organization, and that's the gifts between $200 and $1,200. And they have 422 donors in this category. So 32% of their donors are giving at this level, and that's raising about $194,000. That's 15.8% of their overall fundraised revenue. And so again, an important component and good to segment them out and see them as a separate segment. Now let's take a look at the top tier, those donors giving above $1,200 in a single gift. There's 151 of them, which is about 11% of their donors. They are contributing 80% of the operational or of the funds raised for this organization. So imagine when you look at your numbers in this way and you realize that 80% of your donations are going to come from 151 of your donors. It is the evidence that you need, that you should have a strategy in place for one-on-one relationships with those 151 donors. You cannot maximize on that level of interest and capacity to give by your mass marketing, by your mass campaigns. You have to understand the value of investing additional time and resources into those 151 people with personalized relationships where you really get to know the donor, what they're trying to achieve, and you really share your impact stories with them so that they can really feel a part of the outcomes that you deliver. So here's just a third way to look at it. This is more about how you should think about your resources. So on the right-hand side, again, you see the same triangle pyramid, which has your 10% of dollars raised from the lower half of your pyramid and 90% raised from the top half of your pyramid. And so the suggested way you should think about your time and your investment of money and other resources is to spend 30% of your time and resources working with those donors in the bottom half of the pyramid, the 10%, and then make sure you're addressing 70% of your resources, human resources, time and energy and money, to that 90% of donors who are above the middle point. So that's just an industry recommendation based on the return on investment. So that's a little bit of my evidence for why major gifts are so important and impactful and such a worthwhile investment. So right now, all of this may just seem like a bunch of numbers and it doesn't have very much of a personal connection to you. And, you know, I certainly understand that. If you are like most people, you might have fallen into the nonprofit world. Certainly most of us don't come to the nonprofit world having taken a post-secondary education in it, and we come with all the skills we need to run our nonprofits. If you're feeling like you just kind of fell into it and you're figuring it out as you go and you're learning what you need to go, just kind of in the crisis mode, I totally hear you. I can identify, and I was there once, and I'm going to just tell you my personal story briefly because I think it's very relevant. I was first hired as an executive director with literally no executive director experience, but leadership experience of another sort, which made me the ideal candidate, I guess. But I definitely had very limited knowledge about fundraising. And this was an organization that owned property. They had a staff of 8, and they delivered some really impactful community support programs. So that was a lot to take on. Now, I looked at the financials before I took the job, and I recognized who was on the team, did a little investigation, and they did have a fundraising staff member. So I didn't feel too stressed about not having that particular expertise. But 6 months into that job, we hit a crisis, a financial crisis. We were literally close enough to the wire that one failed grant and one event that did not produce the way that it was intended to produce or expected to produce. And I was in my office holding my head in my hands, thinking about how I was going to make the recommendation to the board that we reduce our services and had to lay off one of our staff members. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but there's nothing worse to a young leader than that sick feeling that this good organization that delivers amazing services is potentially going to go down on your watch. And that was me that day. And I swore to myself that I would never be that vulnerable again. I would never leave an organization I was working for that vulnerable again. I didn't cause the problem, I inherited it, but I did not have the skills on hand to solve the problem. And I don't know if you can identify, I've certainly seen that very stressful moment drove me to just like unrelentingly pursue knowledge about fundraising. And it really shaped my whole career. I knew I needed help, and I'm just very, very fortunate that I managed to get in touch with actually our local community foundation. Good resource if you haven't tapped into them before. And they put me in touch with a mentor. And my mentor, Sue, knew everything there was to know about forming genuine relationships with donors, about conveying the tremendous impact of your organization, and learning about the impact that they wanted to have in the world, and looking for that match. And really it was that work with Sue that helped me to fall in love with fundraising and to take such joy and pleasure in my work. And really that was the beginning of my career in major gift fundraising. In fact, I did go on to be an executive director for 10 years, but left that work when I realized that I really wanted to just more deeply do major gift work, which is what I do exclusively now. So I wanted to share that personal story because major gifts was a turning point for me in my career. It was not only a turning point for the success of my organization, which went on to grow and grow quite substantially in their impact because of the revenue we were able to generate, but also because it really I was somewhat afraid of fundraising. I was somewhat uncomfortable with the idea that I wasn't personally affluent. I didn't know anyone who was affluent. I just didn't understand that anybody had the free available resources to make gifts like that. So it really was a turning point for me. My mindset shifted. I really just fell in love with the relationships that I could form with donors and such interesting people who wanted to change the world through our organization. So I just wanted to share that story because there is a passionate personal side to it for me, and that's why I share this work with you. And I hope that you someday get there as well, where you can be super excited about the work of fundraising and inspire others in your organization to learn to love it as well. So now that I've made the case for major gifts, and you believe me when I say it is a powerful and impactful strategy to employ with your nonprofit, let's ask the question that you may be wondering, what is a major gift? So this is really an internal term, and it means absolutely nothing to a donor. So don't use this externally to your audience, to your donors. This is just an internal term that helps us describe that this is a donor who needs to have a one-to-one strategy, or a prospective donor that needs to have a one-to-one relationship strategy. And of course, those are a little more time consuming than your one-to-many strategies, your events, your mail outs, your emails, your social media. So you need to be selective in who gets on that list. And we're going to talk about who gets on that list, or how you find people to put on that list, and how you cultivate them as a part of training too. But bear that in mind, that the word major gifts is, or the term major gifts is just an internal term. Now, how much? How much? Everybody wants to know, what is a major gift? And it really is relative to your organization. What's a major gift in my organization, and I'm a fundraiser for a larger university, is completely different than what is a major gift for the small nonprofit down the street, or the church, or the hospital. Every organization has to look at their own typical size of gift and determine from looking at those numbers what makes a major gift. So typically it's within your typical gift range, what would be considered an exceptional gift. So a gift that you see is of a size that doesn't come in quite as frequently and would delight you. You might consider those mid-level gifts, and then those gifts that are rare and transformational and you want to get the president to give them a call, and you're so excited because you're really going to be able to deliver some additional impact, major gifts. And so we consider everybody sort of at that mid and major gift level to be the people we want to cultivate for additional gifts and support. Another thing to bear in mind about major gifts is the path to a major gift typically takes 18 to 24 months. Now, that may disappoint you because you might have thought this was a quick win strategy, and I'm not saying that we don't have quick wins, because when we meet with our donors and we really ask them what they hope to achieve, and this can include corporates and foundations where there is a personal relationship. And then we share with them the impacts that we're having, and there's sometimes a very fast path to a gift if the timing is right. But typically we plan for a rhythm of 18 to 24 months with cultivating a prospective donor before we see a gift. And so we need to be prepared to invest that time and energy, knowing that the return on that investment at the other end is worthwhile. Now, during that 18 to 24 months, you're going to be cultivating your donor, and you will likely have 6 to 9 donor interactions or touches or cultivation activities during that time frame. And that's without an ask. So these are things like inviting them to join you for a lunch where you learn more about them, or inviting them to have a behind the scenes tour of your organization, or meet with a recipient of your services. Perhaps they are a special guest at one of your gala dinners and you seat them next to the president. These are all touches. Or perhaps they mentioned that they are particularly interested in horse racing, and there's a horse racing event coming up, and one of your board members is also a horse racing fan, and they take them to that event, and it's an opportunity to further cultivate that relationship, to further talk about your organization and the work you're doing, and build that trust over time. So that's 6 to 9 donor interactions is what you can expect. When we look at statistics, it's just nice to know that the typical $1 million gift or million and more dollar gifts come from folks who have been giving consistently for multiple years. 14 years is the range of this study. And that tells us that cultivating donors over time is really the key strategy to that eventual, very large, very transformational gift. When I talk about the donors and the cultivation pathway and making it to the point where there is an ask, try to bear in mind that we consider that donors are actually in a cycle, and once they give and we steward them very well and convey to them the tremendous impact that their gift has had, they will just grow closer to our organization, more invested, and likely to give again. Once a donor has been giving a gift of any size, even not a major gift, and this is just something to maybe make note of for yourself, for 15 years or longer, I think the very typical number used is 18, but anything over 15 I would pull a watch on. They are 80% more likely to consider a bequest to your organization, so a gift from their estate. And it's very much associated with major gift fundraising to blend in conversations about estate giving, legacy giving, and I would definitely encourage you to start to build that into your strategy as well. And I have lots of training as well that can accomplish that for you if you're a little bit uncomfortable, nervous, or don't know where to start. Just stick with me. I provide lots of resources that will cross over into that world as well. All right, next we want to take a quick look at how major gifts fits in with your full suite of fundraising strategies. Because as I mentioned, just because major gifts is really important and probably the most transformational fundraising strategy you will embrace, it does not mean that those other strategies aren't still really important to your organization. So your organization might look something like this. I like to do an exercise with organizations where we do an inventory of the strategies that you have to make sure that you have a full understanding of what's available to you and what you are using now, and to give you some ideas maybe of things you haven't explored before. And I always do this exercise with my boards when I'm doing board training, because it's really important that the board has an understanding, first and foremost, of the full suite of fundraising strategies available to the organization, and then a good understanding of what their role is in supporting fundraising. So looking at this little diagram, you will see that we have your individuals, we have special events, which is also primarily individuals, foundation grants, government grants, corporate sponsorship, service clubs, and earned income or social enterprise. And this is a very interesting and important revenue strategy. We're not getting into that today, but I did notice that one of our groups mentioned that they have a earned income strategy built into their organization, and it's a great thing to make sure you're considering if it's a possibility for you. So looking at the same diagram, I've circled here the strategies that I would include within my Major Gifts program, my strategy for Major Gifts. And I would include, of course, the individuals who I felt could give at that level that I've determined was a major gift level or could potentially give, and we would want to cultivate them. I would include foundation grants where the foundation acts like an individual. So if it's an online application that's very systematized, then they wouldn't fall into this category. But many foundations actually have a family or an individual at the helm where cultivation on a one-on-one basis is really the best strategy to move forward with. And the same with corporate sponsorships or partnerships. Some of those are very personal and personally led, or maybe there is a process for smaller gifts, but for larger contributions, they really do like to build a relationship. So that's something you would explore as well, and include some of those names on your prospective major gift donor list. All right, next, we're going to look a little bit at the journey that the donor takes and what is our work in major gifts. The whole point of the major gifts cultivation timeline, which, as I mentioned, takes about 18 to 24 months, is to bring the donor closer to us. Of course, at the beginning, we see on this chevron arrow, we start with the whole world who is unaware of our organization. And we know that we are busy doing things like social media, being covered in the media, building just general awareness, maybe through our website, our brochures, or other activities, through events, through our mail outs, and through our email. So we're trying to build awareness through these one-to-many strategies. And then as people have made their first, second, gifts, maybe they've come to an event or two, we understand that they've demonstrated that they actually are interested in our work, in the impact that we have. So those are our one-to-many strategies, are handling that first half of this diagram. Once we know that they're interested and that they have some growing interest and demonstrated some capacity, we start to bring them closer to us, and that's where our one-to-one relationship building really starts. So we may see these donors starting to experience us more intensely. Maybe they've had a behind-the-scenes tour of our operations. Maybe they've had an opportunity to meet with your CEO or your someone else on your staff that's key. Maybe they've started to participate by joining the board or an advisory committee, or perhaps they've provided some advice or counsel on your business plan. So now they're really more invested. They're investing time and energy in your organization. They've demonstrated in some way that they care in how you get to your success and would be willing to step up in some way. And then there's ownership. So by the time your donors reach the far right-hand side of this diagram, and we're labeling sort of that with the word ownership, it means they really are invested in your success, and they feel that they have contributed in a way that your win is their win, that your achievement is their achievement, that the impacts your organization have are impacts they had a personal hand in achieving. And so that level of ownership is the highest level of investment that our donors take on their journey. And then the quote below, just a reminder that people do give to things in their life that they feel the closest to. And so that's our job as fundraisers, is to bring the people who have in some way put up their hand to show interest, to bring them closer to us and our impacts. So now we know why we should do major gift fundraising as one very important strategy within our fundraising suite of strategies. And we know now what major gifts are. So now I want to talk a little bit about how we can be successful with major gifts. And so over the years that I've been developing my major gift skills and my ability to coach others in major gift, I've really come up with this ecosystem. These are the things that need to be in place to help you be really successful. So we'll see at the top of the interior triangle is the impact for vision and change, the partners on the side, and engagement on the side. And so let me explain those to you. But I want to actually start by talking about what's in the center. So identified community need, which is the reason why your organization came to be. And it's always important when you're doing things like diagrams or using something as a tool, that you put that identified community need at the center, so that you are always referring back to the reason for your organization's being. We never want to get caught up with fundraising for fundraising's sake, fundraising success just to be successful. We are really remembering that the purpose is to have an impact on this identified community need. So at the top, the impact for vision, impact and vision for change, that is such an important piece to the success of all of your fundraising, but in particular major gifts. And that is that you need to have the ability to communicate both verbally and in written communications, the impact that your organization has and what your vision is for the future. And you really want to focus on building this as an essential skill in all of your staff, volunteers, and board members. The more comfortable they are with being able to talk about your organization's impact and your vision for the future, the more they will be supporting your major gift efforts and contributing to your major gift efforts. It's really the most important role they can play. If they're not the lead fundraiser, the most important role they can play is being a communicator. The second piece there is partners, and I'm including in here both the partners who will help you get there. You need to identify your connectors. It might be your board, it might be some volunteers, it might be some friends. But also in partners, I'm including all of your prospective donors. So when people think about getting started with a major gift strategy, one of the first questions they ask is, well, who am I going to ask? Who is even going to be someone who could give a major gift? And so figuring out who could potentially be a major gift donor for your organization is one of the key building blocks. It's such an important piece of the overall puzzle. And we're going to talk about that a bit tomorrow, or in the training number 2. And then the third piece there, the third pillar, is engagement. And so that's all of the things you do to cultivate that donor, those 6 to 9 touches, that 18 to 24 months, and then the stewardship that will bring them back around to becoming a donor again. So those are all very specific skills and activities that you can learn, that we can do. And so we need to make sure we have that well thought out as well. Now the circle around is kind of the environment, the pieces that sort of flow through all of this, and they are really so essential to your success. We need to get really good at figuring out how you're going to manage your time, because you are busy, the people in your organization are busy, and thinking about adding a new major gift strategy or thinking about adding major gifts as a new fundraising strategy is the biggest worry is going to be, well, when am I going to have the time? So I'm happy to tell you that you can do major gifts in a small amount of time compared to doing another event or doing a big massive social media campaign. You can be specific and fence in the amount of time that you use, but you have to be very good at managing your time, and you have to schedule it in. Then there's skill building. You have to create an environment where you're always building your skills, where you understand what the skills are that you need to build to do major gifts. And it's really some great nuanced things. I teach a lot of this in my Raise More Now program, sort of the exact ways in which we can identify donors, research how we cultivate them, how to understand their personality, how to customize the information we present to them, when is the time to ask, how to ask, all of those skills that we need to be successful in major gifts. And then goal setting and motivation. So I have to say that most people can easily learn the skills of major gifts. What is harder is staying on track with those goals, setting reasonable goals, and staying motivated to keep working your plan, working your strategy, because major gifts is not an immediate win. It is a long-range game, and you have to remember, when you're faced with constant urgent things that nonprofit leaders always are faced with, how do you keep those important long-range things on the table, keep them scheduled, keep working the plan, instead of just pushing them off the side of your desk, which is what I see time and time again, because it's not an urgent activity. So that's the ecosystem that I feel are all the component pieces that will make you successful at major gifts. So I want to reiterate, after covering that slide, that major gifts work is not hard, and it is not time consuming. You do not have to fear it. You do not have to feel overwhelmed with the idea of getting started. It can be done in a reasonable amount of time. It can be fun. It can be easy. And so I want you to not be fearing that strategy after that sort of ecosystem that I covered. It's as natural as forming genuine relationships with people who've given you any indication that they have interest and capacity, and everything else is a bonus to add on to help you be more successful. Now, I also want to pause and tell you something. I'm going to break something to you. You're here at this training, and I'm going to guess that you're the only person from your organization here at this training today, and that tells me that you are the expert at fundraising for your organization. Let that sink in. Everyone else in your organization is going to be looking to you for guidance on how to be successful, how to help, what to do. And when I say that, that has impact, because you yourself might feel like you're just learning. You're just figuring it out. You're learning as you go. And you might also have some of those uncomfortable feelings that other people have. And know that someone has to steer the ship. And so it's time for you to get comfortable with fundraising. And here's what I hear when others turn to me, or when I'm asking them for help with fundraising. I mostly hear that they dread being asked. I can see it when they sort of turn away in the board meeting and they hide their head. They dread being asked to help. They're afraid of fundraising. They're worried about how they will even come to terms with asking others for money. They don't want to burn the bridges with their friendships, their friend circles. They feel like they're going to have to ask all of their friends to give them all of their money. They are concerned that fundraising is basically salesy and will make them feel slimy. They're worried that that it will push them to act in some way that is out of integrity with their basic being, and they worry that it's about coercion. and they basically come from a lack mindset. So they feel like there's not enough to go around. So if I ask you for more, then you will have less. And all of those things are the negative mindsets that will prevent success in fundraising. And so I pause to tell you this as a sidetrack, because the first step in getting people to support you in your fundraising, and potentially the first step for you to embrace fundraising, if you are one of these people, or if you have any of these thoughts, is to deal with mindset. And so I'm just going to take a quick sidetrack here, because I do have a board training that I deliver, and it addresses this issue, and it's got a great little framework that I think will just help us address some of this mindset. All right, so this is my on-board fundraising framework, and basically it says that to get anybody on board with your fundraising efforts, you first need to help them with their mindset and move them from resistant to comfortable. Then you need to give them some level of mastery, which is taking them from unsure to confident. And then you need to give them some momentum, some easy wins, some early successes, and move them from tentative to eager and successful. So I do train on this with a series of exercises, but I think I've given you a couple in the workbook that will be helpful. You can try them. Actually, one is about mindset, and the other exercise is about getting people comfortable with the vision, mission, and future of your organization, which we already talked about. So let's see, what pages were those on? I think they were on pages 6, 12, and 13. So I encourage you to do them, but also to think about who in your organization you might want to do those exercises with, or something similar to that, to help them really move their mindset from resistant to comfortable with fundraising. And I'm just going to take you through the first thing that I do with my board members when I'm doing training, because I think it really helps to just start by redefining fundraising by looking at the definition of philanthropy. So I start by asking them how they feel about fundraising, for sure, and get a good read on that. And then we look at these definitions one at a time. So the definition of philanthropy is the desire to promote the welfare of others, often expressed by the donation of money to causes that connect to heart, passion, and values. Another definition, the solemn act of compassion and justice. And a third definition that really spoke to me, philanthropy is a conduit for social impact and social change. And this is so true from the many, many, many donors that I've met. People reach a certain age and stage in their life where they realize they want to have made a difference. And they're wondering to themselves, they're taking stock and saying, what difference have I made? What impact have I had? You know, what change can I still yet make? And they're longing to deepen their sense of meaning and impact. And often the things that they want to change or make a difference in the most are things that have a very personal connection to them. They've either had a personal experience or someone in their family has. And by and large, they do not have the infrastructure, skill set, or capacity to make the change that they want to make. They just can't do it on their own. So they've found your organization. Your organization is having the impact that they long to have. And so by giving to your organization financially, they are making a difference. They are having an impact. And that's the mindset of most major gift donors. They are coming at it from a perspective of making a difference through you, through your organization. And so once the fundraising team really embraces the idea that they are partners with donors, they are helping the donor to have the impact they want to have by learning about the impact they want to have, and by finding the matching piece of their organization that has that impact and putting it all together. And so the fundraising that I'm talking about is a win-win for everyone. All right, we're nearing the end of our training day number 1, and so I just wanted to recap and say we've learned about why we should be doing major gifts. We've learned about what a major gift is, and now we've learned really how we can be successful by looking at this ecosystem. Diving in for training number 2, we're going to start building we're going to get practical. We want to leave this training with you having some real things in hand to get started with major gifts. So we're going to dive into that. Your first draft at a list of prospective major gift donors that you're going to work on, and then how to engage them. How do we take them on that path of cultivation? So that's what we're going to talk about in training number 2. And I'll just wrap up by taking one more slide here. This is how I see philanthropy and doing fundraising. What we are doing is we are getting to know a donor, their personal passions and interests. We are sharing with them our organization's mission and impact, and where those two overlap, we have philanthropic magic. I hope you've enjoyed today's training. I was really excited to deliver this live, and we had some great questions and answers after the training. We can't do that in this pre-recorded version, but please try to make it to training number 2 live and then pose any questions that you have. I'm happy to do some live coaching if you've got something in particular that you want to dive into. And I really look forward to chatting in the Facebook group. If you're a Facebook person, happy to join in there and have conversations. Otherwise, I will see you for training 2, which is scheduled on Tuesday, the 21st of September at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you there. Of course, if you want to invite friends, I think I included that link in one of my emails, but I'll send it out again. People can still catch up on this training because these replays are going to be in the hub page until the end of the month. So thank you for joining and have a great weekend.